It's your boy, Akinola Disu.
And Chuck T's.
And this is Driving While Black Podcast. Thank you guys once again for riding with us as we navigate the black experience. Chuck, what's up, player?
Man, what's good, my brother?
Man, I'm chilling, man. You know, better than I deserve, man. I'm feeling good.
Hey,
I'm feeling great. How are you, brother?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. I got no complaints on over here, bro.
I feel you, man. So, man, today is episode, first and foremost, it's episode what? What are we on, 5?
This is episode 4 or 5.
4 or 5, man. Damn, we can't keep track. But we're recording on Inauguration Day, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So today was the day we got Trump out of there, and Biden and Kamala. Did I say her name right?
Kamala.
It's Kama. You say Kama and a la. Kamala. I think it's Kamala.
Okay.
My wife gets mad at me every time I say her name wrong. So hopefully I'm saying it right. Kamala. They got sworn in today, so it's a good day. But man, we again thank y'all for riding with us today. Today we're gonna be talking about racial encounters, and then these are just encounters surrounding race, whether they're racist encounters, whether it's we experience prejudice or discrimination, or it's just encounters with people that have race involved, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely.
But before we get into that, of course, we again want to reiterate this is our 4th or 5th episode, so we're fairly new. We just want to reiterate what we're all about and why we started this podcast. We started it to talk to our black and brown people and get some things off our chest, man. Talk about some of the issues, the everyday issues we face, and some of the systemic things that we face as black people. And just, again, get some things off of our chest, air out our grievances, and again, talk to our black and brown people about these immediate issues.
Definitely. And also, we use this platform as a form of therapy for ourselves and for our audience. We talk about these issues that could trigger you. They could make you feel some type of way, but ultimately, almost like a muscle. When you have that tight spot in your muscle, you kind of got to rub it out. It's painful.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
But, you got to rub it out, and so we can all feel better about it.
Right. Absolutely. And of course, this platform is here to celebrate our black and brown people as well, lift them up, and display and amplify how black is beautiful, man. Black is beautiful. Like I said before, black is prolific. Black is black is everything. So like Chuck said, we want to give a little trigger warning. We're talking about racial interactions, racial experiences that we've had personally with race. So sometimes, us as black people, we've suffered a lot of trauma in regards to race. So we just want to give that disclaimer that we're going to be talking about race. There's some personal situations that we've been through that may trigger you as a black person because maybe you've been in that similar situation. Maybe a family member or a friend has been in that similar situation, or you're just triggered that another black man had to experience some foul shit. So we just wanted to put that disclaimer and warning out there. If you're not in the mood today to hear about some fucked up shit, maybe we turn this off and watch it another day. I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it 100.
Make sure your emotions are all the way intact.
Right, exactly. So yeah, man, I know you a couple weeks ago had some crazy shit happen to you.
Right. So I think that was the day before I think we filmed our second episode.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It was the day before we filmed our second episode. I had an encounter on the freeway. So that day I was leaving work. I was riding north on the I-5, headed home, and I'm in the fast lane. And I'm, just minding my own business, just driving. Right. I'm thinking about getting home, getting to my wife, my son.
Absolutely.
And in my routine. And so I'm just driving. And then out of nowhere, this truck just comes and cuts me off on the freeway. Now, mind you, in my car, if somebody's too close, your car is will alert you to like stop or slow down, or it'll stop for you.
Right.
So this person cut me off and was so close to hitting me that my car had to stop on its own.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm pissed. I'm like, yo, like what the fuck? Like there's no blinker, there's no nothing. So you know, in my feelings, I get over. I pull up to the side of him. I come out the window like, yo, what the fuck was that?
What's up? Yeah.
You know, like what the hell? So he rolls down his window, immediately verbatim. This is what he says: "Fuck you, motherfucker! You wasn't paying attention." So I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, okay, I'm pissed, but now he's pissed.
Right.
So he's coming at me like, "Fuck you, motherfucker! You should have been paying attention." And he's like, "What? He's like, He's like, pull over. You feel some type of way? Pull over."
Yeah.
So in my mind, in the moment, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna whoop this dude's ass. I'm gonna pull over. So I'm on the freeway, mind you. So I'm looking at the exit. The exit's coming up. I'm getting all the way over, and I missed the exit.
Yeah.
So I missed the exit, and you know when you're on the freeway, the next exit doesn't come for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So that whole 3 minutes, I'm driving, and I'm like, all right, I'm finna beat the shit out of this dude. Like I'm finna beat the shit out of this dude.
So hold on,
I got time today.
You missed your exit?
I missed the exit to get off to pull over.
Okay.
Because I was on the freeway. I'm not gonna pull over on the side of the freeway.
Right.
I'm gonna pull over off the exit. I'm gonna get on a corner of the street, whatever the case may be.
But he didn't exit. So you're both still on the freeway.
He's following me.
Oh shit. Okay.
So he's following me. I see him following me. I missed the exit, and so I'm thinking to myself what I'm gonna do. But then it dawns on me in that 3 minute time period, and I'm just replaying the situation, and I'm like, even though he cut me off and I'm pissed, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, why is he so ready to go? He might, you know, he could have a weapon on him. He could have had a bad day, and he's ready. He's ready.
Absolutely.
So you know, I'm starting to think about it. I'm like, all right, well, if he does have a weapon, why would I put myself in that situation? Because I know I don't have nothing.
For sure.
So the next exit's coming up, and I was like, fuck it, right? I said, fuck it. I turn over. I get back into the fast lane. I keep going. I was like, man, screw this dude.
Yeah.
So he comes smashing back, cuts everybody off, pulls on the side of me, this time my passenger side.
Yeah.
And he rolls down the window, and he's sticking his head out. He's like, I'm going to cut your fucking head off, nigger. I'm going to cut your fucking head off, nigger. You scared? You scared? So I'm like, he took it there.
He took it there.
He took it there.
God damn.
So instead of having the initial reaction again, I'm pissed off. Now I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, now he's trying to trigger me to make this happen.
Yeah.
So by him saying, I'm going to cut your head off, nigger, that lets me know he's racist.
For sure.
And that also lets me know he might have a knife. He might have a machete sitting in the back. He might have a gun.
Right.
So now I'm really not about to pull over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the only thing I could do is look at him as he's saying these words to me, and I just kind of laughed.
Yeah.
I had to laugh it off.
Yeah.
So I laughed it off, rolled up my window, I sped off.
Kept it moving.
But, you know, for me, in that situation, I had to tell somebody. So the first thing I did, I went on Instagram Live.
Yeah, that's where I saw it.
Yeah, I just expressed the story, and I'm just like, yo, this is what happened, la-di-da-di-da.
Yeah.
And I just had to get it off my chest.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
so I expressed it, and I left it there.
Yeah.
You know, so that was kind of my racial encounter.
Yeah.
You know, from a couple weeks ago.
And that's crazy because I remember seeing it on your live, and I just hit you, bro. Like, that's crazy. I'm like, you good? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm pissed, obviously, but you know, and I'm like, bro, you did the right thing. Like and it's fucked up, right? Because in those situations, it's like you don't want anyone to be talking to you any type of way, especially you don't want to, as a man, you don't want to take that disrespect, right?
Right.
But at the same time, if he's coming in so hot and he cuts you off. So it seems like he's trying to start something and get it shaken just off of the simple fact that he sees a black dude maybe driving a nice car, and he's like, I'm gonna fuck up this black dude's day to day. Either I'm gonna inflict harm on him, or I'm gonna do something to where he goes to jail.
Right.
But either way, I'm ready to go. And I told you in that moment, I'm like, bro, as much as you want to, you know, pull over and beat this dude's ass, you did the right thing because you have a son to go home to. You have a family to go home to. And that's your main job, and your main objective is to get home to your family.
Right.
You can't let some bum and some racist bum trying to, you know, antagonize you, take you away from that
Yep.
objective and that
Trigger
goal.
me to take me out of my character.
Right, right. And what for what? So you can go to get locked up, another black man in jail,
Right.
or worst case scenario, you get harmed by him.
Yep. And it affects me in a way to where I can't continue to do what I'm supposed to do in my household.
Right,
It can
right.
take me away from that if I allowed it to.
Right, right. But it's almost like it still sucks, right? And it hurts because it's like it's a lose-lose situation. It's like that sounds all good and great, but at the same time, this dude just fucking threatened my life. He called me a nigger. So instinctually, you wanna do something. You wanna see that man.
It's like a defense mechanism.
Right.
Like, okay.
You want to defend. You want to let him know that you can't just be talking to anybody like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You can't be talking crazy to anybody.
Right.
And I want to let him know I'm not the one.
Yeah. Right.
I'll take it there.
Right.
But I did it, which was to my benefit.
It was to your benefit. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was an interesting story. That happened to me, and there's been countless of stories.
Right. So,
in that same light.
What do you suggest to someone that's been put in that situation? Because I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people watching and listening. What do you suggest? Because sometimes, again, like depending on the word, what's been being said, depending on the situation, maybe you don't have the strength or the option to just walk the other way or just drive off. But how do we navigate that?
That's a tough question because it varies to the person.
Right.
See, for me, my motivation was my family.
Right.
My wife and my son. Like,
you had something
they
to live
need
for.
me.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna go out of my way and be in my ego wanting to defend myself from this racist person. Right. I had to step out of that ego and be like, all right, the bigger purpose is here. I'm here. I'm doing a job. I'm making a living for my family. I'm not going to let this racist person take me off that path.
Right.
So that's how I handled it. But it varies for different people. Say they don't have a family. And they're just, a person of color out here, a black person that, is like, hey, I'm on go. You took it there. I'm going to take it there.
Right.
But so I can't really say it or have a suggestion for it.
Right.
Ultimately, you just have to be smart. You have to choose your battles.
You have to choose your battles. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. You got to choose your battles, man. Because although you may not have a family, your livelihood, man, your life, right? If you do choose to, get off on that exit and confront that man, it's gonna come to blows, right? You don't know if that man has a weapon or whatever the case is. So you're essentially putting your life on the line in that moment, right? And if not your life, you're putting your freedom on the line.
Yep.
Because you guys get into an altercation, get into a fight, whatever goes down, goes down. Now the police roll up. You getting put back in that police car and you going to jail. Whether you end up doing time behind it or you just have you get charged and you have a criminal record behind it, either way, it's you lose in that situation. And that's what makes it tough for us, right? Because we don't want to be disrespected by any means, right? If someone disrespects us, we want to let them know, yo, I'm not the one. You can't go around talking to, you want to make an example out of them, but at the same time, you don't want to put your livelihood on the line and you don't want to put your freedom on the line. And I would say, man, just try your best if you can. If you have the opportunity to drive off, walk the other way, man, just think about everything you have to lose. And really, you have nothing to gain in that situation. Except for maybe
just an egotistical satisfaction that I put him in his place.
Exactly. Maybe just polishing your ego. That's really it. And you got to think: is that worth my livelihood? Is that worth my freedom? Is that worth my money? Is that worth my career? Is that worth my family? Is that worth? You know what I mean? You got to think about those things, but it's hard in those moments to rationalize and break it down like that.
Yeah, definitely, because it happens quick.
It happens quick, man.
It happens and you're not expecting it, and it's just a reaction.
Right.
And hopefully for everybody out there that we kind of have to train ourselves to not react.
Right.
And to just analyze.
Right.
Like you said, is it worth it? Is it worth my career, my job? my freedom, you know,
Right.
not being with my family. Like,
Right.
it's not worth it at the end of the day.
It's not
you know?
worth it. And like you said as well, you got to pick your battles. So maybe if you're in a certain situation where you have no choice but to defend yourself, right? You defend yourself by all means.
By any means.
By any means, you defend yourself. But if you do have that opportunity, you just got to be smart, man.
Definitely.
You just got to weigh out your options and be smart at the end of the day, and know that your livelihood and your freedom is more important in that moment.
Definitely.
So
but what's interesting is that you told me something happened to you this morning.
Not this morning, bro. Like 30 minutes ago.
30 minutes ago.
And what's crazy is, so that happened to you, right? And we were talking about it, and we kind of, based on what happened to you, we thought, well, maybe we should have an episode on racial encounters, racist encounters, whatever. And I was just kind of like, man, because my personality is, I throw things into my subconscious. I kind of let it roll off my back. I try not to let it affect me. So a lot of things that happen to me, I forget. You know what I'm saying? So when I started thinking about, well, what racial encounters do I have? I don't really have any. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, can I not remember just because I've put it all in the back of my memory? And so long story short, I came up with obviously I've had some racial encounters, but what's interesting, since we had that conversation, I had 2 racial encounters. One of which I had 30 minutes ago. I encountered a Karen.
Oh, man. The infamous Karen.
Bro, I never thought I would encounter a Karen. Not a day in my life. I would watch all the Karen Gone Wild videos. I'm like, if only I encountered a Karen. But so I'm literally 30 minutes ago. So I went to the mall. I'm running out the mall because I'm late for our podcast. I got to get ready. So I'm literally sprinting out of the mall. I get to the parking lot. I get to my car. I think I opened the door to my car. And it happened so quick. I'm not exactly sure how it happened. But all I know is I look back and there's a woman behind me in her Audi, her SUV. And she stops behind my car and she says something, something, something. And what I heard loud and clear was neighborhood. And she drove off. She sped off. So then I proceeded to get in my car and I was like, what did she say to me? And then I quickly came to the conclusion that she said, I'm like, did she just tell me to go back to my neighborhood? So, you know, as black people, sometimes we take a minute to pause and we're like, yo, did she just say that to me?
They're processing it.
You process it. And then you usually 9 times out of 10, you're like, nah, I'm tripping. She didn't say that shit to me.
Nope.
She probably said some other shit.
We give them the benefit of the doubt.
We give them the benefit of the doubt. And probably if it was any other day, I would have got home and would have been like, oh shit, I think she was being racist and said, yo, go back to your neighborhood. But for some reason, I processed it very quickly. And I'm like, yo, she just told me to go back to my neighborhood. So I said, fuck that. I need to know for sure what she said to me. So I hop in my car and I literally sped and followed her. And we stopped. We were both at the light to exit the mall before we get on the street. And literally side by side. And I looked at her and I said, yo, what'd you say? And she looked at me and she ignored me. She put her little mirror down and started putting her lip gloss on. I said, yo, what'd you say? And she ignored me. So I honked my horn. And then she finally put her window down. And I literally didn't say anything. I might have said again, what'd you say? And the first thing she said, she's like, don't be racist to me because I'm white. And I said, what? And literally she sped off and I cussed her out. I don't know if she heard me, but I turned the other corner. I'm going back home. And I was just literally like, what the fuck?
Like, damn, she hit you with the reverse racism.
She hit me with the reverse racism, bro. She said, angry black man, don't attack me. Don't be racist towards me.
All you asked her was, what did she say? You just wanted her to double down on
her racism.
Yeah, that's it.
And she said, oh shit, he's actually, he wants me to, he's confronting me now. I'm not just going to be passive aggressive, say some shit and drive off. He actually followed me, he's confronting me. So let me play the damsel in distress and play the reverse racism card and be like, don't be racist to me because I'm white. But I never even said anything of the sort. I just literally said, what did you say? If that.
Right.
The first thing when she rolled down her window, she said, don't be racist to me because I'm white. So now I know she said back there, she said some foul shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Because why would that come up in her mind? Don't be racist to me because I'm white. If all you asked her is what did you say? Obviously, race was and you being black was on her mind.
Was on her mind, because if it wasn't, she would have been confused. She would have been like, what? Sorry, what are you saying?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say anything.
Right.
Or she would have doubled down on her racism. Or she would have said what she said, and maybe I misheard her. Maybe it was like, oh, sorry, I thought you said something else.
Right.
No, she literally said, don't be racist to me. So race was on her mind. The fact that I was like, that was on her mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. So the first thing I do is I call my wife. I'm like, yo, can you believe this shit happened to me? And she's like, that's crazy. She's like, now you have something to talk about on your podcast. And she's like, it's funny because she's like, when you tell the story, she's like, don't tell it as if you didn't hear her. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So there's no confusion. I'm like, no, I'm going to tell it exactly how it happened and let the people decide.
Right.
Was she being racist? Did she say some foul shit? Did she tell me to go back to my neighborhood? Or am I delusional and am I crazy and am I overreacting? And I can't say she said something racist because I didn't fully hear her.
You didn't hear her first few words.
I didn't hear her first few words, but I'm a smart dude.
Mm-hmm.
I can put two and two together.
Mm-hmm. I can read between the lines.
I could read between the lines. Did she say it's a great day in the neighborhood today?
Because if she said that, then she would have doubled down and like, oh, I just said it's a great day in the neighborhood.
Isn't this a lovely neighborhood?
Yeah.
I'm like, she didn't say that. She said, go back to your neighborhood. And what's crazy, I don't know if I heard more, but I know for sure I heard neighborhood.
Right.
So
just to paint the picture, you were getting in your car to back up and from the parking lot. She was driving past you while you were getting in your car. So she's kind of doing a drive-by, let me stop and say something and then pull off.
Bro, I'm running out of the mall. So it's not like we crossed paths. It's not like we were in the mall in a store and we were in line together and we had an opportunity for us to have an interaction.
Mm-hmm.
She literally probably saw a black man running out of the mall and said, yo, I'm going to confront this black man.
She probably thought you stole something.
For whatever reason, I'm going to confront this black man.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't have thought I stole something because I had a bag. So
but clearly, you were running, so who knows what she was thinking? Who knows what she
thought? But she saw a black man, and she literally went out of her way because I'm gone. I'm on the move. I'm getting in my car. It's not like I'm kind of just walking down the street. Oh, it's a nice day. I'm on the move. I'm going.
Right.
So she made an effort to stop behind my car, roll down her window, and say some shit to me.
Well, for the viewers, y'all can decide: is that a racial encounter? Or
am I tripping? Am I crazy? Tripping? Am I delusional? Am I being overly sensitive?
Yeah, I would like to know. I would like to know what people think about that.
I would like to know too. So comment, let us know. DM, let us know. Am I tripping? Or was she being a Karen? Was she on her racist shit today? It's the inauguration today.
Right. Black woman just walked in the office.
Some people are tight about that.
Some people are pissed.
Some people are upset.
She could be one of those people.
So, and let's say she didn't say that, right? Let's say she didn't say that and I was tripping. When I pull up on the side of you, maybe I came off aggressive, I don't know. But all I was saying was, what did you say? And if our windows are rolled up, maybe I'm asking for directions. I don't know. If it was a friendly encounter from the beginning, maybe I want to respond to what you said to me.
Right.
So why is it the first, like let's say she said something, she didn't say that. Why is the first thing you say to me, don't be racist to me because I'm white? When was I being racist?
Yeah. What is asking what you said being racist? Y'all decide.
So I know what happened. I know the answer. I want y'all to reflect and see what you come up with. in my personal opinion, if you can justify this woman's actions,
Hey,
you might be part of the problem.
possibly.
Possibly. So,
Actually, you know what? I want to also ask you another question. You had brought to my attention, I think last week or the week before, about a coworker that brought a calendar to work.
so yeah,
So the reason I'm bringing this up is
Yeah.
because we're talking about like direct or overt racism, or maybe what she did by saying go back to your neighborhood and pulling off. Maybe that could be considered covert.
Right.
But there are other situations or other variety of a lack of awareness to white people or allies that they may not understand. So
Yeah.
I think you brought that up with this calendar situation. So I kind of want you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think as black people, a lot of the times we have certain things that trigger us, right? Naturally, right? We talk about trauma. We talk about how, especially in the last few years, not few years, historically, in regards to race, we've experienced a lot of trauma. So there can be things that trigger us, and sometimes we don't even know our triggers. Sometimes, obviously, other people don't know our triggers. They think they have good intentions, but sometimes we're still triggered because of the trauma that we've suffered, right? So yeah, so I had someone, a coworker of mine. I came into work, and I dapped him up, and we're catching up. And the first thing he said, he's like, "Yo, dude, check this out." He's like, "Yo, remember I've been telling you about this movie I watched, the movie with Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx,
Just Mercy."
Just Mercy. He's like, "Yo, I told you I watched that movie, and my my father-in-law actually donated money to that cause surrounding that movie. I think it's called global inequality."
Okay.
Right. So he donated money to that initiative or whatever. So based on his donation, they emailed him or they mailed him a calendar.
Okay.
Right. And in doing research, I come to find out this calendar basically it maps out 400 years of inequality that black people have experienced.
Okay.
So basically on this calendar, day by day, it tells you the injustices that black people have faced in America.
Okay.
At the hands of white people, right?
Okay.
So he tells me, "Dude, I got this calendar. Look." He hung it up in his office. And he was excited about it. He's like, "Dude, you know me. I love history. I love, he's like, I thought this was pretty cool and pretty neat. And come look. And I'm looking at the calendar. And the first thing I see on the calendar is black people lynched or something like that. Like multiple times. Black people lynched, black people lynched, black people lynched, black people lynched. And then I'm reading the calendar. And then I think I just walk away from the calendar and I start talking to him. And I said, "Hold on. Let me go back to this calendar." And I literally each day on the calendar tells you the fucked up shit that happened to black people.
So it's all negative.
It's all negative. It's literally all the worst shit in the world every single day.
Yeah, I would feel some type of way about that.
So at this point, and mind you, this is when I'm just coming into work first thing.
Right.
So then I just literally, and I went into his office to talk to him, but ask him something. So I came back and I asked him something, and then I'm like, "All right, cool," and then I left. And then immediately I couldn't ignore how I felt. Like I felt something in my chest. I'm like, "What just happened?" And I'm like, and then immediately, you know how we do sometimes, we start justifying things in our head, and it's like, well, he doesn't mean that. Am I tripping?
Right.
Am I overreacting? Was that weird? Was that racist? Is he being racist? All these things are going through my head. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, should I say something? And then I was just like, nah, I shouldn't say anything. No, but should I say something? And then I just remember acknowledging the weight on my chest, and I couldn't ignore it. So I I said, I have to say anything. There's something in my chest telling me, whether I'm wrong or I perceived it the wrong way or interpreted the wrong way, I know there's a feeling in my chest, so I have to address it. So I go into his office and I go, bro, you should probably take that down. And he goes, why? What do you mean? I'm like, bro, I get what you're saying and I get the premise of the calendar, but me walking into your office and all it says is black people lynched, black people lynched, black people lynched, black people lynched, that's kind of fucked up. And right away he's like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. It's pretty negative, huh? It's like the negative. I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah.
that was that. And I remember just going back to my office and just being like, damn, that was fucked up. And I remember it just being like thrown off for like the next 30 minutes, like, damn, I was triggered by that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start thinking in your head, was he being racist? Was that intentional? Or was that just a lack of awareness? And he didn't think that would be triggering for me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, because I guess from that point of view, he's a white man, right?
Yeah.
And so I know for me, I wouldn't want to walk into my place of business or my workplace and see black people lynched, black people lynched, black. So, you know, for the same thing, like a Jewish person wouldn't want to go to their workplace and then see gas chambers on a calendar and talk about, you know, all the destruction of Jews. Like,
right.
Take that down.
Right.
Like, why? What makes you think that's going to make me feel comfortable?
Right. And what's interesting is like, okay, so I finally came to the conclusion that everything lined up, right? His story lined up. He told me that he had watched the movie Just Mercy a few months ago. I know that he's very big into history, right? We've had conversations about race and the inequality in this country. I consider him to be somewhat of an ally, right? Because he asks a lot of questions. He acknowledges the bullshit in this country, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that was his way of supporting me and the black community by displaying the fucked up shit that has happened to black people. And I think that's what the whole initiative is to display the inequality of black people, right?
Right.
But I think the part where he missed was that can be very triggering for a black person. Mm-hmm. And looking back on it, I think the way it played out was perfect in the sense that I came into his office and he immediately told me what that calendar was about before I even saw it, and he gave me context. Mm-hmm. And then I gave him feedback and said, bro, you got to take that down. Because you got to imagine there's other black people in my office, there's other people of color. What if someone walked into his office and there was no context given?
Right.
And it just said black people lynched, black people lynched, black people lynched. That would have been very triggering for someone else. Very triggering because now they have zero context, mm-hmm. right? And it would have been a problem.
It would have been a major problem.
It would have been a major problem. And if I didn't know about it and someone came to me and was like, yo, I just saw this in homie's office, I would have been like, bro, are you crazy? What are you doing?
Yeah, right.
And then if you started to explain, oh, this is why, no, I didn't mean
now, like, okay, now it seems like you backtracked.
Now it seems like you're just giving an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think the way it played out was interesting. And I can honestly say I don't think he was being malicious with that. Mm-hmm. But now speaking to our allies, we have to be careful and we have to be sensitive to what black people have been through and what we're going through. Because for me, just the fact that it said that on the calendar in big, bold letters multiple times, you can't do that, bro.
Yeah, you definitely can't.
Like, you got to have more awareness. You got to be more responsible. And you got to know that you just can't do it, especially right. in your workplace, right?
Yeah, and like you said, you said that that you consider him an ally. You consider him to be a person that wants to learn, that wants to be a part of the solution, not the problem.
For sure, and I think he was trying to exercise that in that moment.
Right. So you're highlighting the fact that this is a person who wants to be a part of something greater than himself to help further the cause that we feel strongly about.
Right.
But he also lacks the awareness of how things can trigger black people.
He lacked awareness in the judgment. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that if you're a person who considers himself an ally and considers himself to be a person that wants to further that movement, you have to have conversations with black people to understand what could trigger them.
Right.
Because you're not going to know. You won't understand. You don't have an experience to understand why something like the calendar saying black people lynch, black people lynch, black people lynch can trigger someone. Can trigger a black person.
Right.
So for that small example, that just goes to show that even with our allies, there's still a disconnect with our allies. And that they have to take it upon themselves if they really want to go on that journey with us to keep learning and never come to a conclusion that I understand black people struggle and
here's what I can do
and I don't continue to learn.
Right. And exactly. You hit the nail on the head. I think we have to continually, even if you have good intentions and you're like, yo, I'm going to do this in support of my black people because I'm an ally. If you're doing something in support of us, you got to kind of go talk to a black person and be like, yo, I want to do this. I'm thinking of doing this. I just got this in the mail from this this initiative or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? I think it's pretty cool, whatever. Should I hang it up to create that awareness? And then in that moment, I would have been like, I get what you're trying to do. This is probably a dope calendar. It probably gives you a lot of information. But you can't hang that up, bro.
Right. And you telling this story, this reminds me of, I think we had a conversation before about like when new slave movies come out.
Mm-hmm.
And say if we're sitting down watching a brand new slave movie that came out, right, in theaters,
mm-hmm.
and we're watching it and we're seeing the constant negative, connotations and stereotypes that come with black people during slavery.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're focusing on, the people who look like us, whether that be a black person in the field or a black person in the house. Regardless, they're all slaves, and we're kind of focused on them because we relate to them because they look like us.
For sure.
But on the other hand, our allies or people who are not our allies watch that very same movie, and yes, it's centered around slavery, but they might be focusing on the slave master or the slave master's wife or kids and kind of understanding that psychology. So we're both watching the same movie, but we're both paying attention to two different perspectives.
Right.
And that can cause a disconnect. And with that story, he's an ally. He wants to be a part of the solution, but is unaware of the trigger. So to me, a slave movie triggers me. I don't want to see another slave movie. It triggers
me every fucking time.
I don't want to see it.
I don't. Man, it's I'm not gonna say I hate slave movies because obviously there's been amazing movies centered around slavery, right? And I think they're necessary movies, right, to bring awareness and tell our story, right, and tell that story.
They're necessary to a point.
I think we've had a lot of them. I think we've had a lot of good ones, but like you said, it triggers me too. When I'm in those movies, I'm pissed. I get emotional. You're literally seeing how we were treated. It's not fiction, it's real. You're literally seeing how we were treated not too long ago, right? And how we still are being treated to a certain extent, right? So, yeah, I think for me personally, and you just said it, that is very triggering. So we were kind of talking about how that conversation sparked. I was talking about, was it Lovecraft Country?
Yeah, the show.
The show. And I said, what I like about that show, although it's very kind of left field and weird and not my cup of
Sci-fi.
tea, it's sci-fi, that's not my cup of tea. But what I like about it, it addresses and talks about race and racism and the history of that and segregation and all that. But it does it in a different way. It kind of includes sci-fi, and it gives a different spin on it to where it's not your traditional black people on the plantation. They're getting beaten. They're trying to escape the plantation, and just the horrible, brutality that's inflicted upon black people.
Right.
It kind of gives a little bit of a different spin, although it's still very dark, and it still kind of stirs up those feelings. It's different. It's kind of cool. It's sci-fi.
Right.
So that's kind of how that conversation sparked. It's just like, those slavery movies are very triggering.
Right. But like you said, the Lovecraft Country, yeah, there's parts that trigger you because I think it's based off. Well, it starts from the Tulsa Black Wall Street riot,
right.
when the city was bombed.
Right.
And that was a tumultuous time for black people in that area. But also in the show, they showed those black people are trying to find a way out or find a way to progress,
right,
versus just being captive and being a slave and having to deal with it, deal with the environment,
being in the worst of conditions,
right, and not trying to get out of it. So Lovecraft Country, they're trying to get out of it versus this is what it is, and I'm just here.
Right.
So that it gives off a different message where it's watchable. It triggers you, but it's watchable.
It's watchable. Yeah.
And actually, it is a great show.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
and again, I'm not into sci-fi, but I'm like, the way that they infuse sci-fi with issues of racism and in history, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. I want to keep watching it and see how it unfolds. So, Lovecraft Country, if you haven't tuned in, check it out. I think it's pretty cool and how they address kind of what's been going on in this country historically, what's going on right now, and they infuse a little bit of creativity in regards to sci-fi and things like that. So that's pretty cool. But I think what I will say too, just in having conversations with you, your encounters, your racial encounters, your encounters with race and racism you have a lot more encounters, and you have a lot more overt encounters with racism. Yeah. Whereas me being from Canada, there's obviously racism in Canada, right? There's racism across the world and the globe, but in kind of speaking to you, I've come to realize that the difference between racism in Canada and racism in the United States is racism in Canada is a lot more polite. It's a lot more covert.
Give a situation. What you mean by a lot more polite?
It's, you might have someone that may make a sly remark or make a joke or say something, but they won't come out and call you the N-word.
So, like what? Like, black people can't swim. Like something like that? Like a joke?
Something stupid like that. So, one time I was at work, this was years ago, and this is when Obama won, he won presidency.
The second term?
No, the first one.
First term.
First term. So, of course, ecstatic, black man, first black man in office, we're happy, blah, blah, blah. So, my white coworker comes in, and we're talking about it, whoop-de-woo, and he goes, but yeah, he's half white. And laughs it off, ha, 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 joke. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and that's what I mean, it's like, it's racism. He made a racist comment, and he kind of laughed it off as a joke, but he was serious. Mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, he's a black man in office, but does it really count because he's white? He's probably only there because he's white. If he was full black, probably wouldn't happen. So that's what I mean. It's like you get doses of racism like that. And I remember another time I was coming out of I was in high school, and I was coming out of another high school, and I just got bombarded by undercover cops, and I got put in handcuffs right away, and I got thrown into an undercover cop car, and they drove me around the corner, and they started questioning me, and they pulled up I guess, pictures, and they realized who they were looking for wasn't me.
Your racial profile.
I was racially profiled. And they laughed it off. They're like, "Oh, you ever seen the movies?" They said something real stupid to me. You ever seen the movie or the show Bounty Hunter or something like that? I'm pissed at this point.
Right.
I'm like, no. And they're like, "Oh, it's just mistaken identity, man." I'm like, "All right, like get me out of here then."
Right.
Like, you know,
Take these cuffs off.
Get me out, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And they uncuffed me and let me go. And in that moment, again, I'm debating. I'm like, were they being racist? Was that a racist encounter, or did I just look like whoever they were looking for?
Mm.
And that's kind of what we're forced, you know, being black, you know, in this country, or in North America, we're forced to have those conversations with ourselves. Race is always at top of mind.
Yeah.
Was he being racist in that moment? Was I being racially profiled, or was it just I was in the wrong place at the wrong time? And it's funny, I forgot about that story, and I remember talking to my sister, and I was telling her I can't really think of any times I had racist encounter. And she's like, "Didn't you get arrested by the?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't think that was race." And she's like, "Yo, that was 100% racial. You were racially profiled, and that was a racial encounter."
Definitely.
But like I said, my personality, and I think sometimes a lot of with black people, we brush things off. We're desensitized.
Because it happens so often.
It happens so often, and we're kind of tired of it, and we don't want to go through our lives and our everyday lives with that top of mind. We don't want to play the race card every fucking time.
Right.
But it's like sometimes it's like, and we don't, and we kind of push it to the back of our memory. There's a lot of things that happen to your black friends, or black people that we don't talk about because we just want to forget about it. We don't want to address it. We just want to move on with our day. We don't want to be in a dark place all the time.
Right.
So sometimes we just push it to the back and we forget about it and we justify like, yeah, nah, I think I'm tripping. I wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So it's almost like black people as a whole, and I'm not even going to say 100%, I'm saying 99.9% of the time, we carry the burden of always having to think, well, damn, is it racist or because I'm black? Or it's always
being racially profiled right now.
We always have to have that thought in our head because these situations happen and there's no other way to explain it.
Yeah.
And we want to not make it about race. We want to just live and live our lives and do what we want to do. But situations happen where it's like, it's glaring that it's, you know, a racist encounter or it's racism, but we want to put it in the back of our head and deny that it's not.
We want to deny and justify and make excuses for these racist motherfuckers. Like today, I'm like, I could have easily, I feel like if it was another day, I would have literally justified and literally brushed it off and said, there's no way that lady said that to me. And drove on and went home, and then maybe realized when I got home, and it would have been like, oh shit, she was being racist. Or maybe I just would have never addressed it again. But something in that moment told me, nah, she was being racist. Let me confirm. And I got my confirmation.
Right.
But again, it's not always covert. It's not always someone calling you the N-word. Mm-hmm. It's not always someone, you know, even racially profiling you. Sometimes it's as subtle as a lady grabbing her purse when you're in the elevator.
Right.
Maybe it's as subtle as someone shaking your hand but not looking you in the eyes for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. There's subtle acts and gestures of racism.
You know, that also brings me to a situation I was in, I would say 6 years ago. You had mentioned your police story. Yeah. I have a police story. And just to give it context, I had probably 3 traffic tickets at the time. Had a suspended license, so I can't drive.
Yeah.
So I was black suit security at the World Market Center in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so I had my mom take me to work because I can't drive.
Yeah.
And so we pull up. There's a big convention.
So you weren't driving while black.
No, I wasn't driving while
you
black.
was in the passenger seat.
I was in the passenger
minding
seat.
your own business, trying to get to work,
to pay off them tickets.
To pay off them tickets. Not even driving.
Not even driving.
And you still have an encounter.
So the situation was, I pull up to the intersection. There's 3 lanes, right? The very right lane, there's cones to block off the lane, right? Yeah. So I told my mom, I said, hey, pull behind those cones because I'm going to get out right next to the curb and walk to work.
Right.
So she go, okay. So she pulls over. There's a red light. I get out the car and I start walking down the sidewalk to get to the World Market Center. Now in the intersection, there's a traffic cop. So he's got the things and he's directing traffic. All right, you guys go this way. Come on, come this way. Make your left turn, make your right turn.
Yeah.
So he sees me get out the car and probably about 100 feet, he goes, hey, you can't do that. So I'm confused. Like, I can't do what, huh? So I'm like, looking at myself, I can't do what? So I'm walking, and you know, once you get to the intersection, the sidewalk curves, right? So I'm walking along the curve, and I'm like, talking to the officer, like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean I can't do what? So as I'm walking past the curve, or on the curve, he rushes me. He rushes me, and immediately is trying to put my hands behind my back. And so suddenly he rushed me and he's trying to put me in cuffs. And I'm like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on?
Right.
And he's just like, stop resisting. And I'm like, but why are you trying to put me in cuffs?
Yeah.
So he's trying to put me in cuffs and he's telling me I'm resisting and I'm not. I'm just confused.
Right.
So he's putting me in cuffs. He puts them on extra tight, walks me to his car, slams me on the car, and tells me I'm going to jail for doing something illegal. I don't know what that was. So he throws me in the car. Mind you, my mom is still in the car. She watched the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
So her window's down and she's screaming, what did he do?
Right.
Why are you arresting him? What did he do?
Right.
And then I'm seeing my mom getting emotional, so I'm telling her to calm down. Because now the officer's telling her, you're next if you don't shut up.
Right.
She told her that. So I'm like, Mom, calm down. Like, just let it happen. Let it happen. Go away. Go drive off. And she's like hysterical. So she drives off. Cop throws me in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets in the car and his cell phone rings. And his ringtone is, bad boys, what you gonna do?
That's
what
crazy.
You gonna do when they come for you? So I'm like, I'm back handcuffed, twisted. I'm like, oh, man, I just got hit by Super Cop today. Right? So he gets on the phone like, oh, nothing, Bob. Just at work. Just arrested some punk-ass kid. You know, nothing new.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting in the back seat like, wow. So in that moment, my hands are behind my back, and I'm trying to reach for my cell phone. So I have a friend who's a Metro cop at the time. Or an ally, I should say. I thought. So I call him. And I'm like, hey, like, yo,
you call him while you're in cuffs?
I'm calling him while I'm in cuffs. I got my hand in my phone. I call him on. I'm like, hey, man, like,
that's crazy.
One of your fellow officers is arresting me, threw me in his car right now, and I don't know what's happening. But like, is there anything you can do? Like, he's literally arresting me for no reason. So he's just like, just stay calm, like, just do what he says, and you know, I'll look into it. So I'm like, all right, cool. So he arrests me, he takes me and he books me. I get fingerprinted, I get
all of that. So he takes you to the station, fingerprints
I get the whole nine.
Puts you through the whole rigmarole.
The whole thing. So I'm in an all black suit and I'm going to the holding cell and I'm around, you know, addicts and
you said you're crimes. Security, so you had a security.
I'm black suit security.
That's crazy.
So I lose my job, by the way.
For real? Because of that?
I lost my job.
Why?
Because I didn't show up to work.
That's
and
crazy.
you know, so anyway. So my dad bails me out. My stepdad, he used his money to pay the mortgage to bail me out. And the only way he could bail me out is if he had to pay my traffic tickets to bail me out.
So what did you get charged with?
So I'm going to get to that. So once I get out, I call my friend who's a cop, and I'm like, yo, like, why did I get arrested? Like, that was bullshit. That shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And so he goes, you know what? I read the police report, and I'm very disappointed in you. And I'm like, disappointed for what?
Yeah.
He's like, you tried to evade arrest, and you tried to fight the officer? how dare you try to fight the officer? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like,
this is your friend.
This is my friend. I went to high school with, played sports with. I went over to his house, had dinner with his family. Like, he was my neighbor. He lived right down the street from me.
And he's a white dude.
He's a white dude. And so I'm like, bro, that's not what happened. My mom was watching. I literally got out of the car at a red light in a lane where there was a closed lane and there's traffic cones, and I'm right by the curb. I just got out the car, and he said I did something illegal.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to ask him, what did I do?
Yeah.
And he put in the police report that I evaded arrest and I was trying to fight him.
Of course.
So he painted a picture that was absolutely not true.
Of course.
And so me and this friend at the time are literally going back and forth for about 2 hours, right? And at the end of that 2-hour conversation, he tells me, well, you know what? The officer that arrested you is notorious for arresting people for no reason. So I'm like, for real?
Like, bro, you're my friend. You made me go back and forth with you for 2 hours.
For 2 hours.
And you're supposed to be my friend.
And now you tell me he's notorious for arresting people for no reason. So if I wasn't your friend,
right,
you wouldn't even gave me a minute to explain what really happened. Right. You would have just read that police report, said it's facts, 100%. My coworkers, this is what he wrote. That's 100%.
Yeah,
you're a criminal.
Yeah,
you deserve to go to jail.
Yeah.
But because I'm your friend, you gave me 2 hours to explain and have that dialogue,
which was a waste of time.
Which was a waste of time for you to tell me, oh, he's notorious for arresting people.
Right.
So now that lets me know that was a racial encounter. Why would he tell me I'm fighting him?
Right.
Like, I'm fighting you to evade arrest? Like, it's asinine.
Yeah.
So me and that person that was my friend had a falling out.
For sure.
Over time, because it's like, yo, like, I was your friend before you were a police officer.
Right.
And I looked at you as an ally.
Right.
But now you're clearly showing me that you're choosing your profession over your friends. And you know me. You know me before this whole situation. And the fact that you're going to take this person's word over mine, and then you're going to eventually let me know that, oh, he's notorious for arresting people for no reason.
Right.
Like, we can't be friends.
Or you're just showing your true colors.
You're showing me how you really feel.
Yeah.
And, now that I actually think about it, this person would do subtle racist type of slick things that he would say.
Like what?
But it would roll off my... black people like watermelon. Like, just little shit, like stupid jokes and jabs. But I let it roll off my shoulder. I'm in high school. I'm like, oh, you're stupid. You know what I mean? But now, getting to that situation, I realize, yo, it's really, like, he really thinks like that.
It's one of two things, too, right? It's like he really thinks like that. Or sometimes those subtle jokes, those subconscious thoughts and jokes manifest into real, live racism and prejudice.
Definitely. It's
you know
real.
What I'm saying? It's you might think you're just making a silly little joke and you're not racist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those jokes and those thoughts might manifest into situations like that where now you are actually exercising racism and prejudice.
Yep.
Those jokes and those subconscious thoughts have now manifested into real, live racism. And your livelihood is now affected by it.
Yes.
And that's supposed to be your friend and an ally.
Right. And I called him in the moment while I'm getting arrested to let him know, like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And for him to tell me that's what the police report said, and he believes the police report, and he was disappointed in me.
Right. Like he's your dad or some shit.
Exactly. Like, disappointed. Like, you're my friend.
You're my friend.
You're not my superior, authority figure.
Like, you ain't disappointed.
Yeah. So, like, just the whole conversation just showed me that, he
was on some bullshit.
He was on something, and maybe sometimes our people that we think are friends aren't really our friends.
Yeah, people that we think are allies are not really allies.
No.
Or they think they are until some shit goes down.
So a real situation happens.
In a real situation, and you're forced to, for lack of a better term, pick a side. And yeah,
Now I see how it really is.
yeah.
You know, so
That's
that's
crazy.
one of many stories. And that goes along with this episode of racial encounters, and it's a very common thing, like you said, and
It's
it's
common.
things that whether it be overt or covert, preferably covert, we just kind of let it roll off our shoulders and we forget about it.
Right.
And I think we shouldn't forget about
I
it.
think we shouldn't forget about it. And I think part of the reason why I confronted that lady today, and part of the reason why it came to me so quick in regards to what she said to me, was because it's kind of top of mind. We were literally going to record this episode, today, and I kind of had that sentiment of, yo, we can't let shit like this slide anymore. Whether it be covert or, whether it be covert or overt, we have to call this shit out, man, when it happens in real time. Like, yo, that's not okay.
You got to call a spade a spade.
What did you mean by that when you said that?
Double down, clarify.
Clarify. That's not okay, and this is why it's not okay, right? And this is how it made me feel, and you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You have to call that bullshit out, and to our allies, you got to do the same. When your friends are making stupid ass jokes, when your family members are saying some racist shit at Thanksgiving, you got to let them know, yo, that's not okay. That's some bullshit. And they're gonna say, oh, I was just joking, man. Don't be so sensitive. Nah,
no, it's only a joke until it turns real.
It's a joke until it's real. It's a joke until someone dies in the street. It's a joke until someone gets arrested. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This shit, these subconscious thoughts and these jokes manifest into real lives, and people are affected behind this shit. So it's not a joke. This is real.
Yeah. It's a real part of our lives that we have to deal with. And white people don't have to deal with this. They don't have to think about these type of situations because their experience is completely different.
And it's funny because you always hear people say, well, don't play the race card, don't play victim, this, that, and the third. But it's like, only if you knew the amount of shit that happens to us on a daily basis that we don't burden y'all with,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't speak about because we don't want to play victim.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to dwell on the negative. We kind of just push it to the back of our memory.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you knew. This shit happens every day. Like I said, this shit just happened to me 30 minutes ago. 30 fucking minutes ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this shit's real. This shit's real. So, man, yeah.
Yeah. So, in closing, listen, if you're an ally, listen to your friends of color, listen to your black and brown friends when they have stories or they want to, tell you something that's on their mind that bothered them. Maybe something that you did, maybe that's something that they encountered at the grocery store, school, work, whatever the case may be, because these stories help paint a more vivid picture about what black people experience in America. And we're not playing the race card all the time. We try not to.
We try not to.
But there are situations where we have to point it out. We got to call a spade a spade.
Right.
If I see racist behavior or I see racism, I'm going to call it out. And if it's in a casual conversation and we can have dialogue about it, we can do that.
Right.
But if we don't, I'm going to confront you. I'm going to let you know, hey, that's not cool.
Right.
And by that not being cool, we can make this happen two different ways. We can talk about it, or we can just not ever speak again.
Right.
Because I don't have time for it. If you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to understand my experience,
right,
or other people of color's experience, black people's experience, and you're my friend and you don't understand me, then we don't need to be friends.
Right. And for me, I'm not saying you have to agree with my POV, right? I'm not saying you have to. Maybe you have questions. Maybe in your mind you're thinking, well, maybe you didn't hear her properly. Maybe you didn't. Maybe that wasn't a racial encounter. Maybe the police officer was just doing his job. That's okay. But ask more questions. Try to seek understanding before being understood. You know what I mean? Have that dialogue and have that conversation. Just don't shut down your friend, right?
Right.
Just don't be like, nah, man, I think you tripping. I think you on some bullshit. Be like, well, let me understand. I'm having a hard time understanding. Walk me through this again. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let me understand your thought process. Why do you think in that moment you were a victim of racism or he was racially profiling you? Let me understand. Seek understanding. That's what we need to do. That's what we got to be about, man. We got to seek understanding on both sides and have the dialogue and the conversation. And that's what this platform is about, man. Is seeking understanding and having that conversation, that dialogue. So we can understand each other, man, and we can
grow and
grow and move forward.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wrap, bro.
All right, brother. Another episode of Driving While Black podcast. Thank y'all for tuning in. Subscribe, like, comment, share.